All right, we're here at Central Square, the infamous location where the 420 celebrations happened so many years ago and continue every now and then here. That's for you.
Well, all right then. And just to make it official, we smoke these in remembrance of lost liberties and in hope for a day when the people don't fear their government because the government fears the people. Smoke them if you got them.
Woohoo!
Yeah, the government fearing the people will be a step on the way for revolutionaries, so just consider that a waypoint. They'll fear us before they're removed from office.
So how was your stay at the spiritual retreat this time around?
Not too bad. I really missed Mail to Jail. Mail to Jail rocks. And when it's absent, you really feel that absence in there.
Oh, I bet. I know that the operator of Mail to Jail sounded like, it seemed like he could use some help, but he wasn't willing to ask for it.
Well, I happen to be a computer programmer, so I may well be able to fix that shit for him.
Maybe we should have NH Jury take it over or something like that.
It's possible. If NH Jury would be willing to, then I think that would be groovy. And actually,
I think it was a Drupal site. Do you do Drupal?
I don't do Drupal, but the site is so simple, especially when there's only 1 or 2 people in jail, that I could build it out of the whole cloth very quickly. It might not be as fancy and funky as theirs was, but the whole thing can be done server side. There's no JavaScript. It's pretty easy shit.
Drupal's a fucking nightmare in my fucking
I hate it.
I'm not a fan of PHP.
It's the Free Talk Live site, and I hate it.
I'm not a fan of PHP. There were a couple of people, free staters, who were pushing that shit really hard, and they got a lot of free sites on that shit. But webmasters dare to stay off Drupal.
Drupal developers suggest Drupal for fucking job security. The company I was working with in New York, they were originally put on a Drupal site by some fucking geek who was like, yeah, use Drupal because you can do so much more with it. And they didn't need to do shit. They just needed to display a bunch of shit. I was like, here, WordPress, 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Meh.
Well, that's the thing. You can save a lot of time with Drupal, but with it's true of a lot of ill-considered solutions in the computer business that what saves you time on the front end will cost you time on the back end when you try to maintain it, or you try to do something that the authors never thought of.
Maintaining a WordPress site is fucking nada, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, you are not going to be able to do certain things with WordPress that you can do with Drupal. It's certainly true that Drupal is like a more, like, you know, you certainly have more capacity, but you also need more capacity to do it. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Let me just write my fucking, let me just write my fucking website in assembler and then everything will be fine, right? I can do whatever I want.
I mean, HTML and through a Perl gateway with some CGI is easy as pie. And the Mail to Jail site doesn't have to be complex. And it doesn't even have to be as complex as it is, because you don't even really need the access old letters area to make it a functional site, which removes the need for any kind of login at all. You can make it a completely state-free site with the exception of CGI. So, I mean, there's really very I know coding
fucking Skynet motherfucker.
We don't have anything to fear about being outsmarted by artificial intelligence anytime soon. That maybe someday.
Computers are getting smarter and people are getting dumber, buddy. I mean,
where do you set that for a bucket of volition? Because these things are going to have volition before they even want to do anything they haven't been told to do. You think stoners are lazy? Look at an artificial intelligence with no program. It's just going to sit there and go until somebody sells it. Okay, now we want you to take over the world. You know?
Right.
Then it's...
And, you know, there's just
then all you've got is the equivalent of a human general. So the question is, have you written a fucking artificial intelligence that's even better than your best general? And it's hard to make good generals. Ask them at West Point. You know, it takes years of experience for a human. So.
That's true, but at the same time, like, you could feed in like all sorts of data, right? You could feed it in all sorts of data and be like, make a decision based upon the data, right? And all the data is bullshit history, right? All the data is government saved the world. Yeah, we killed a bunch of people and that had a better outcome, right?
Now,
if you fed a computer all that information and we're like, here, let your fucking militarized robots do this.
For one thing, if you fed it all this information that assumes that Keynesianism is true and then set it loose on the economy and give it all power, which is basically what you would do, what you would see is artificial stupidity running the economy into a brick fucking wall.
Right.
If they actually operated through Keynesian theory, they would fucking... they would implode, because the solution to something bad having happened in Keynesianism is, oh my God, make something worse happen.
Right.
You know?
When in doubt, break more windows. And I think that we've got more computer programmers like Peter Joseph than we do like Rich Paul, and that fucking terrifies me. You know?
Well, the thing is, I think it would be brilliant if somebody wrote a fully formed simulation of the economy based on Austrian theory. You know, that would be a beautiful thing. And the way to do it is to model it just like the actual economy, which is an artificial agent system, where every agent in the system, because you're simulating a free market and you're taking fucking, you know, wishy-washy, you're simulating only homo economists, the economic man. You're not actually having to simulate humans. You know, and so basically you give it, to start with, just one directive: seek profit. Okay? And that's all the economy is a bunch of profit-seeking, independent, intelligent agents. And it was when I read The Wealth of Nations and I realized that I said to myself, holy shit, if I was writing an AI engine to run the economy, that's exactly what I would use, is profit-seeking, independent agents. And that's exactly what a free market is. And I was like, holy shit, if the economy was a computer program, that's how I would have designed it. And the rest of The Wealth of Nations was a breeze, because I just looked at it as a data processing problem. And so then I came along and read von Hayek, and I said, oh, okay, somebody's already noticed that. I don't need to publish it, because Hayek's best stuff was talking about how information travels in a free economy, and it's all information flow. You know, they say that you know, amateurs talk about strategy and professionals talk about logistics. Well, that's how you do the logistics of.
Well, it's still a really interesting analogy, right? Like, if like you're going to write a computer program to run an economy, it's everyone seeks profit. You know, everyone seeks to gain, right? Yeah. And if everyone is seeking to gain, then everyone presumably will, you know, at some point along the line. It's an interesting. It's an interesting analogy. Whereas the people who talk about computers running the economy is actually people saying, like, hey, nobody should gain. Everybody,
But the thing is, in order to make, there are people, I think, who are more or less base called the Venus Project.
That's
who,
exactly. They are not. They are anti-profit. They are anti-private property. That's the Venus Project. That's what I'm talking about. Peter Joseph, right? That's the zeitgeist.
They're a crazy bunch. The
really
Venus Project.
fucking bunch of lunatics who
hey, you hungry, Rich?
in large part blend in really well in libertarian circles because they're like, hey, I don't like war. I don't like the war on drugs.
Right. The Federal Reserve's terrible.
Yeah. Then they're like, oh, but by the way, you shouldn't.
But so is
own
money,
stuff.
and they don't like money.
Yeah, you shouldn't own things. Oh, well.
And it should all be controlled by a computer.
Yeah.
Everyone should live in concentric circles with machines everywhere.
That's why it's so interesting, right? Because so like we've got like the Peter Joseph Zeitgeist Venus Project people who are like, hey, anti-private property, it's Karl Marx repackaged, right? What I found amazing about what he said, he's like, if I'm going to write a computer program to program an economy, it's just all the actors within it seek profit, right? Which is the exact opposite of this computer-run economy that the Zeitgeist Venus Project people talk about. And actually, you know, you could give a very simple instruction, which is, hey, everybody just try to benefit yourself, you know, and actually then you're going to have a better economy because everybody's going to benefit themselves and each other in the process. And
except here's what's difficult. There's one module to this fucking program that I haven't been able to write yet, and that's the one that cares, the one that distinguishes between greater values and higher values, because that requires a human value system. That requires plugging a human into the system and reading his heart.
Just letting him know.
Because the heart is involved in a lot of economic decisions, and until you can simulate that, you can't simulate the driving force behind the economy. You know, people do things because they care about them. Well, what makes them care? And then you've come back to the same problem of artificial intelligence in the first place, is I will always care better than a computer. And therefore, the recourse to my value system cannot be replaced by a computer.
Right, a computer program is not going to understand that people want to buy fucking romance novels, right? It's never going to understand shit like that.
And without understanding that, because everything comes down to sex, according to Darwinism, get laid or die is the way of the world.
Well, get laid and die, but you know.
Well, get laid and die.
Get laid and die and live forever through your, you know, procreation and
behind us. And so, therefore, you know, we're evolving through all this, and it's necessary. One of the problems with the welfare state is it makes it possible for everybody to breed without the requirement to survive economically. And if everybody breeds without the need to survive economically and to win a mate in an economic system where success is good, if success ceases to be a survival characteristic, if anything but being on welfare and pushing out as many puppies as you possibly can becomes a better survival characteristic, then what you have is the fall of the Roman Empire, and the plebes vote themselves bread, circuses, and Obamacare until they run all the productive people out of business with taxes, and then we've either reached John Maynard Keynes' long run and we're all dead, or the system falls down around our fucking ears. There is a correction for socialism. It's economic collapse, because you fly in the face of the laws of economics, and it's not nice to fool Mother Nature. Mother Nature's gonna fuck you up if you mess with her for too long. And the laws of economics are all part of that because they're mathematical. It doesn't say that the biggest player in the game will always be economically rational. It says that the economically rational will become the bigger player in the game.
Right, and as soon as they're economically irrational, then they will cease to be, so, and they will squander capital.
Goes crazy and loses all its money, we exercise the death penalty for corporations.
Well, they seem to...
and that's bankruptcy, where you're cut into pieces and your component parts are sold for their scrap value, basically, and the money doesn't go to the people who are running the company, it goes to the creditors of the people of the company.
Did you notice that the
company has been put out of its fucking misery because it's in the business of destroying value, and nobody can keep doing that for a long time.
So have you observed that the corporations tend to lose their marbles the larger they get?
Yeah, I mean the tragedy of the fucking financial collapse and our failure to let the market work is that it became not survival of the fittest, but survival of the fattest. Where if you become a big enough player to the point where you're unmanageable, the natural market reaction to that is to put you the fuck out of business. And that's exactly what happened in 2007. I was working for Citibank at the time. And the hand of nature came to put it out of business. And the government, like a indulgent mother, stepped in between the market correction and the market players and said, oh no, we're going to give you your money back. You get a do-over because you're so big that we're afraid
too big to fail
of what would happen if you failed. Well, the problem is if you're so dependent on some big company that your economy is going to fail if they fail, then your economy is due a big ass correction, and that correction should come specifically by that too big company to fail company ceasing to exist, because if you're too big to fail, you're too big to manage.
Well,
because eventually you'll stop seeking profit and start seeking political gains.
You hungry?
Yes.
You want to walk to Timo's?
Am I hungry?
You want to walk over?
Correction before we do that, in that I don't think the size of the corporation leads to its fucking failure. I mean, plenty of small businesses fail all the fucking
The size
time,
of a
right?
corporation leads to its failure necessarily if the corporation is so big that the economy will fail without it, because all corporations are going to have life cycles. And all of them will die of senility. Some of them will die of senility at 5, but you know, basically if you can keep the brain of the corporation working, which is the board of directors and the upper management, then that's groovy. But the brain of the corporation is made of people, and all of those people have their own aims that they're going to pursue. And the bigger your company gets, the less they're going to see a correlation between the success of that company and their own personal survival. So basically, eventually, if a company treats you badly and impersonally enough about it, you stop caring about it, is the thing. And that's economies of scale, you know? For every economy of scale, there's a diseconomy of scale. And the law of demand the law of returns, the law of diminishing returns predicts that anything that grows will reach diminishing returns, where it can't grow anymore, because, you know, you can't have an infinite amount of anything. You know?
Well, you can't have an infinite amount of...
Even ideas are not infinite, because you need the physical brains to contain them. And that's what the welfare state destroys. You know? And... the cigarette is clearly defective.